And that's not what the I do. Can I curse on here?
Yeah.
That's not what the I do.
Right.
So what I do is, again, like I said, this is secondary and sometimes tertiary for me because I have other things going on.
Right.
I have my master's in education. I have a bachelor's in political science. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I know how to do my research. So when it comes down to triangulating and looking at scholarly peer-reviewed journals and articles to corroborate my information, there was literally a study and a research that talked about what it is that it is when Trump speaks about specific things and how it turns out that he's actually a cult of personality. A lot of people have consistently talked about his followers being in a cult, and people say, well, you have drunk the Kool-Aid. And people take that as comedy. It's not comedy when you actually look at psychological studies that have literally showed and dissected that statement at the RNC in 2016, when he said, I alone can fix it, is along the lines of what any other cult leader has actually used.
Right.
So those people are just blindly accepting some of that information. And yes, when he says the black and brown people coming across the border, millions are pouring in, immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country, that's specific language.
Right.
Agreed.
That's using
and that
fear.
language was used before.
Right. Hitler used that language as an example.
I was going to say probably was a dictator.
Yeah.
So when you hear him say, or his followers, make America great again, what do you think they're referencing?
Well,
because I don't really understand again, make America great again. So with your research and studies, or maybe when you have conversations with people or comfortable debates and they bring that up, what do they mean?
Yeah. Well, Make America Great Again was not a tagline that Donald Trump created. See, a lot of people don't know that Make America Great Again was a tagline that Ronald Reagan used in the 1980s.
Wow.
Donald Trump just came out, and when he used it, he trademarked it. Because that's what he did. That's what he does.
Okay.
So Make America Great Again, I always, and I've said this in videos, I implore people to ask directly and straight up to Donald Trump's followers, what does Make America Great Again mean? And what again are you talking about?
Well, what does that look like exactly?
Yeah, well, that's what gets me again.
I think we actually have a picture of that now.
What year?
When?
What year?
Make America Again for who?
Right.
Make America Great Again for who?
That's right.
I think those are my two questions. When is again and for who?
Right.
And what does it look like? But I think the party 2025 is, what does it look like?
And he said on last night's stage that he knows nothing about Project 2025. It had nothing to do with it.
No.
Lies.
He said it's the opposite.
Definitely a lie.
More than 100 plus of the people who used to work in his direct administration now work with the Heritage Foundation and co-founded and co-wrote Project 2025. The fact that he is now trying to distance himself, literally, we have the person and people from the Heritage Foundation. By the way, for the people who don't know what the Heritage Foundation is, let's break that down. Let's take it a step back.
Yeah, let's do that.
Right.
The Heritage Foundation is a think tank. What is a think tank? It is a organization, a nonprofit organization located in DC. There are many of them. There are liberal on the liberal side that do it for Democrats, and there are Republican ones that do it for the conservatives on the Republican side. They basically create legislation. See, a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people don't understand the back end of Washington, D.C. They just think, well, I elect you, Morgan. You're going to represent me, and you are going to try to have your constituents in mind, and you're going to say, I'm going to create some legislation that's going to help my constituents, because that's what I'm here to do.
Okay.
Right.
That's not how that works. Not in a large, overwhelming percentage of the times. What ends up happening is these think tanks create legislation and literally write them up. And they send them over to the people who are in office, and they go ahead and they use copy and paste, introduce it as legislation sometimes. And so the Heritage Foundation has been creating legislation for Republican administrations for decades. And actually in 2016, during Trump's administration, they were actually like applauding Trump for doing 60+% of what they wanted them, like what the Heritage Foundation wanted to do. So they actually enacted 60% of that. And they were like, oh, this is great. Trump can say that he doesn't know anything about Project 2025, but he's been at the Heritage Foundation. Similarly with his VP candidate, J.D. Vance, and have been both on camera saying, y'all have been doing amazing work, and actually been saying your work will guide us into the future. We know what the hell they're talking about. People from the Heritage Foundation are literally on camera, like in closed rooms, spy cameras, caught saying, we know that Donald Trump is trying to distance himself from Project 2025. It's all part of the plan. And by the way, it's not just that. We also know, right, that there are 70 people who work in election offices across the country, particularly in battleground states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia, that are people who think that Donald Trump still won the 2020 election, that still certify and say that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. And what they're planning on doing in part of these election offices, they're trying to create and change the rules so they don't have to certify the election if Kamala Harris wins.